G'day, film fans. I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and Jeff is gone. And welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to keep us honest, we've made this a drinking game.
Ooh.
Oh, I even waited for it. It just didn't happen. If we say anything, the rules are, if we say anything negative or stupid about a film or anything else, you're going to hear this sound. And that means we're drinking.
Yes.
So
that's right.
Pour yourselves a glass, cover yourselves in glitter, and let's delve into some king of rock and roll stuff.
Fuck yeah. This week we are talking about Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. That's right. You may have seen the trailer. I feel like that has gotten really good coverage all over the... I don't watch TV anymore, but it's been in front of every movie I've seen for the past several months. I've been excited to see this. We will talk more about it.
I'm excited to see this for several reasons.
Well, Dave was not excited. I'm excited to hear your thoughts then, because I'm a big Baz Luhrmann fan.
I'm a big Baz Luhrmann fan. I have a misconnection with Baz Luhrmann. I was actually at Gold Coast Airport one day, and I was sitting there talking to a guy. I mentioned I was in film, and we chatted away, and he's like, "Oh, I've got to go. My friends are catching the plane," and fucking Baz Luhrmann walks through the airport. I was talking to one of his crew. I was like,
"So cool."
Yeah, swing and a miss.
Well, we will definitely, you will hear me praising that man and his team quite a bit throughout this episode. But before we get there, just to give the usual shout outs, Carlos Barroso is our beer sponsor. You can find his handle on Instagram in our show notes at cbarrozobar.beer, CBARROZO.BEER. And the music on every episode is provided by the artist Dasein. Follow the show notes to the links for the Bandcamp link, and hopefully coming soon, some Spotify and other links as well. All that music is available for free. So jump on it, support Dasein. All right. So just to give us the little blurb here before we jump in case you don't understand what this movie is called.
Max Headroom just then.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. This is a biopic of Elvis motherfucking Presley. So I'm not reading a blurb. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I think you know what this fucking movie's about. The only twist that you get very, very clearly from the trailers, and the movie makes it, perhaps to his own detriment, overtly clear, is that this story is told not from a God perspective, the way some biopics are told, from like the objective observer. This is told from the observations of his manager, the Colonel Tom Parker, who is played by Tom Hanks, a infamous, notorious manager of Elvis Presley from the beginning, and it's kind of told from his perspective. It's almost his story, if you will. We will discuss whether or not that helped it work. Mm-hmm. So let's fucking go for it. I saw this. I'm not gonna lie, I really, really regret. This is not showing in many large format theaters here in Los Angeles. No. So I thought, all right, whatever. I'll just go see it in a regular one, and I wish I hadn't. I think this movie, his sound design is always fun, but what they probably did with Atmos is probably incredible, and I wish I would have seen it with a better sound presentation. It was a little quiet, and just the stereo perspective was quite boring, because I could tell with all the panning that they probably were doing some really, really juicy, fun things with the sonic experience, and this was all about the sonic experience. I'm going to talk more about that, but Dave, what do you think, man?
I famously said to my wife just before I left to go see this, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't think Baz's unique style would apply to a biopic. And as you said, this is not a biopic. This is a fucking supervillain narrative, basically. And like the second, like the Baz Luhrmann logo came up, and it's just fucking glitter and stuff everywhere. And I was just like, all right. And then it launches into the beginning of this film. I don't think I breathed for the next 30 minutes. It was just perfectly edited. Like, amazingly edited. It's like, if anyone's ever seen Billy Connolly live, the man goes off on tangents, and he famously said that, like, sometimes he gets caught out on TV because he goes off on tangents and he doesn't come back. And like the credits are rolling and he's only halfway through his comedy routine. But this went off on tangents, but every time it did, there was a graphic hidden in the image that you were transitioning to somewhere to tell you exactly what time and place this was happening. This was Baz at his best.
he is a capital G. I think we might be ready to call him that. Like,
this was absolutely a masterwork.
Yeah, I mean, he is a genius, dude.
And also, I did see it in Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
God
You're
damn
not
it.
kidding.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Good for you, dude.
I was
feel like an
half the film you were at a concert. Like, yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. And just the sound design, the way they were using these little tidbits of, he was doing a lot with the keys were crossing, turning some things major and minor, which you would expect, but
sometimes
the way that some
mashups.
Background effects, like what would be in the backgrounds of sound design, were tiny little inklings of the beginning of a song that might happen 10 minutes from now or is in the past. And so, let's give it up really quickly to Jonathan Redmond and Matt Villa. They worked with him. They've each worked with him before, I think, on Australia and Gatsby.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't see their families for about 6 months on this one.
How the fuck can you tell someone that? I can't. I need to sit down with Baz Luhrmann at some point in my life and just ask him, like, can I read one of your screenplays? I don't understand how they get from your head, if you see it that way when you're designing, how you get that onto the screen. The way visually, we've all seen Baz Luhrmann work masterfully with the visual and sonically. I mean, Moulin Rouge is wonderful, and
yes,
what he's done visually,
Moulin Rouge was
with
a fucking
all of his
assault
work,
to the senses. So this pulls it back a little bit, but you still get you still get the same style. Yeah, it doesn't detract. Like, it's simply the perfect way to tell the story he's telling. And I think you're right.
And I think a lot of people would have said, because I might be one of the few people who I just love Baz Luhrmann. I think he's so original. I did like Great Gatsby. I'm not going to say I loved it, but I really, really appreciated it. And it worked for me. And I think Baz did something that only Baz can do. He can wow you with his spectacle. And about halfway through his films, you realize you're invested. And how did he do that? It's a magic trick.
I was just thinking there. Sorry, should I bluff my way through this conversation, or should I admit it's on my should have seen that by now list for Gatsby?
Sure, no, it's fine. Honestly, I don't think a lot of people really. It was not received well, and I think he went a little too far for maybe a mass audience with what you just said. He did perfectly in this one.
Yeah.
Now, it really helped that he was not able to make up his entire own soundtrack design. Like, it was dictated to him by the works of Elvis Presley and people who influenced Elvis Presley, which was enormous amounts of blues and black musicians from his time and before.
That and made it something else as well.
And he brought in just a touch of the hip hop.
Yep.
He brought in some really wonderful new age influences on what people have done with, what have contemporary artists done with those same influences? And, it was really, the flair was there. It is a Baz Luhrmann film, no doubt. But the way let's just talk really quickly, because I don't think this is going to give anything away, because it happened in the first 20 minutes, and it might be what you're talking about. This might be my favorite reveal of a protagonist in years. The way they filmed, for people, the way that literally camera angles and editing, the way they gently, over the first 20 minutes of this film, introduced you to a young Elvis Presley was fucking brilliant.
Yes, it was.
By the time you finally are looking at him head on, when he's at his first performance, which is in the trailer, they have built up a mythology around him. There's a mystic being on stage by the time they get
everything, there. And they cover everything in about 20 minutes, but it's absolutely not in order. It bounces around, which keeps you interested, and it keeps you aware, and it keeps you focused. And I feel like that was a really, really good choice. Because I've just, the note I've got here, it just says the editing and about 8 exclamation marks. Like
the editing. Yeah. Unbelievable. You're totally right. You're right. And let's give it up for the editing a lot for that, because in Moulin Rouge, Strictly Ballroom, Romeo and Juliet, all of these are very visually stimulating films, but I think more with this film than with those films. Those films put a lot of that visual technique into the cinematography. Is that there with this one? Yeah, for sure. It's the design is incredible. And who filmed this? I believe it was Mandy Walker. Mandy Walker filmed Australia for him, Mulan, which we all thought the cinematography for Mulan was pretty kick-ass, even though we didn't love that movie as much. But the editing and the way they brought visuals into this, literally the way they introduced them into the image, into the screen, it wasn't just the way he was telling the arc of the scene, which was conceptual, the way you were just saying. It wasn't always linear, but literally the way within a second or 5 seconds, the way the screen would be cut into pieces and you wouldn't even think of it as multiple images. It just felt like it was constantly bleeding. It was fluidly moving in and out of different time periods, different aesthetics, it was nuts, man. So let's just go from the beginning, I guess. And then we'll move into spoilers, because this is all over the trailer, but it still delivered. This is not one of those movies where you felt like, oh, the best moments are in the trailer.
Yeah, you have seen nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That kid, that gorgeous young man who plays him as a child in that flashback scene at the very beginning where it goes and he goes to that revival and discovers
that's the thing I love as well. Like,
and his music.
Like they don't sugarcoat the influence that like that music had on him, and the fact that he was taking from that music to create, or like in some points recording his own versions of those songs, like,
which he did shamelessly, which we can talk about.
Yeah. And wasn't it was as I don't know, like the reality, but the movie portrays him as not resented for that. It was like he was welcomed.
Yeah, and I don't know if a modern audience would agree with that. I wish we had a person of color on this podcast, because I think that became a more popular argument recently to say, yeah, but he stole all this music and made tons more money on it. I don't know how it was received at the time. I don't know if, the George Gershwin thing, him. So unfortunately, we just don't have that voice, and I don't know if we'll be able to ever say that objectively. But subjectively right now, I feel like that might be a little sensitive, and I wouldn't be super shocked if Baz Luhrmann in this movie got some backlash because of it. But what you're saying cinematically is totally right. There is a wonderful contrasting montage when that is within a flashback at the beginning of this, where he goes and peeks into what is a kind of, I would imagine it's a brothel. It's not just a bar. And there is a blues guitarist in there playing, what's the name of that first song? That's All Right.
Yeah.
And he's playing this slow bluesy version of That's All Right. And there's a little tidbits of this in the trailer, but what they don't show you in the trailer is that this montage goes back and forth because he almost simultaneously hears the music from this revival tent, and it starts going back and forth really quickly. That's an oversimplification, but in a really interesting way, between how he is being affected by the Hallelujah choir get down that's happening in the tent, and this slow, sexual, sensual, disgusting, dark brothel with no lights and sweat. And it's so interesting. And it's like both of those things, if we're going to point to the essence of Elvis Presley, I think Baz took a risk and said, let's just cling to that as much as we can. And the rest of the movie is kind of dictated by that opening sequence.
I feel like we should talk about one thing before we move on to spoilers, and that is we're talking about Baz a lot, but Elvis. The actor playing Elvis.
Yeah, let's give it up for him. I think it fucking worked for me.
I agree. I think it worked.
I think Austin at some point, Butler is this young man's name. Holy shit.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if he's not on an Oscar list. Simply he for really the portrayal. Because at some point in the movie, I forgot I was watching an actor.
Yeah, just like God damn it. Chad's damn it, who's Black Panther? Help me out here.
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman did not get the nom did he get the nom for Get On Up? But I remember when I was watching that about James Brown, just being like, who the fuck, what the fuck is happening? And it's just like absolutely disappeared into this role. It's hard to do that with these iconic people. You really do have to kind of lean into the fact that everyone knows who they look and sound like. So I have to play into that. And he did it. He did it shamelessly, but.
And also he does it through 5 different time periods?
Yeah.
6 different time periods. Like the makeup on this guy was amazing, and it was flawless.
It was all the way to the end where I was waiting for them to show the heavy Elvis, and they eventually do. They put it off. That's not the front and center part of the story arc, which is good because if you're like me, I didn't realize Elvis died so young. I thought he was in his 50s. I did not realize he was fucking 42 years old.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And that's not a spoiler. Sorry, folks, if you didn't know that, but Jesus Christ.
You didn't know Elvis died.
Yeah. Not a spoiler.
Yeah, no. I mean, some people claim he didn't, but he's not working as a fry cook somewhere in like Roswell. So no. I also want to touch on just quickly like the masterstroke of telling this story from the perspective of the Colonel, almost like he starts the story, and it doesn't present one case or the other in the matter of the Colonel. It just starts with him telling the story, and then throughout the things he's saying where he thinks he's right. Like they've literally done the classic definition of a villain in like writing a screenplay. It's like it's a guy who thinks he's right, but they've given him the dominant voice, so he's telling the story. He doesn't think he's an asshole. He doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. He thinks he's right. He thinks he's done all these great things, and they literally put all that in there and let you sit back and just get to hate him on your own. And I thought it was great.
It's really interesting. When you were saying that, it made me realize that Baz Luhrmann has told 4 stories now with a narrating voice. Romeo and Juliet, you could argue, I think that it is being narrated like, by the chorus of yes. the, with the Shakespeare, the prologue and epilogue. Moulin Rouge is being narrated by Christian. Great Gatsby is being narrated by Nick. And now this is being narrated by the Colonel. I don't think Australia was narrated, but there is something narrated about by some fucker. Some fucker, some Australian Kent, some Aussie Kent. And there is you have to get over the, Baz Luhrmann is very much, despite his crazy visual style, there is a very, very simple, let me tell you a story kind of feel to his movies. So we're raising the curtain, literally with Moulin Rouge. Like, you're here because I'm going to try to tell you this story. I don't want to overcomplicate it.
I'm going to tell you a story. It's not going to end well, but we're going to go on this journey together.
It usually is a tragedy. Yeah. He loves his tragedies. I will say for me, I don't think Tom Hanks was my least favorite casting in this movie. And he's still a brilliant actor. And, I don't want people to fucking hate on him, but it was just distracting casting. I just wish they would have picked somebody else, just because I couldn't help but think about Tom Hanks when I was watching it.
I got lost. I got lost. He got me. Mainly because I was so in on Elvis when they were playing opposite each other. It was like your attention was still on Elvis because it's like, what's he going to do with this guy? So like Tom in my experience with it, he almost drifted to the background in the Elvis parts because you can't outshine Elvis. But when he was being a dick to Elvis, he drifted into the foreground. And it was like, this is important. This is one time where he's like, it was good. It was good. I feel like to discuss any further, we should probably turn the spoiler alert on.
Yeah, we'll turn spoiler alert. Again, if you don't know the life of Elvis Presley and you're like me, I guess that's on us, folks. We probably should have known more. But we'll turn it on so we can talk about the details, because this movie apparently does stay fairly true to what the big events of his life and career. So now we're in spoiler territory. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge Elvis fan. Like growing up, I wasn't either. Everybody, you can't escape the appeal of what he did. He's the man, the myth, the legend. Changed the world for pop culture in the music scene, especially, for better or for worse, and absolutely for worse. Black Americans who were dictating a lot of the sound at that time, and white musicians were taking it and recording it, were not at the forefront. So it did take, people like Elvis to really turn really turn the large community of, white Americans and then the rest of the world to rhythm and blues, funk, jazz, and all of that kind of, this giant amalgam turned into what white DJs started calling rock and roll. And he gave birth to that. And I don't think you have to be fucking blind, deaf, and dumb. And even then, you might still fucking know who Elvis Presley is. So I knew that much about him, and I knew all of his popular songs. But this was a hypnotic experience going into the world of Elvis Presley in a movie like this. It was addicting. What Baz Luhrmann, I think, does so well, and I want to ask you if you felt the same way. He's done it before. And I think he just gets better and better at it. He can make you feel and track over time why you love a song so much or why you can react viscerally to art so much. So like in his beginning performances, there is this little sequence of the beginning of women starting to scream. That really is all it is. It's a screaming sequence. Like, do we all know it's funny with the British invasion, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, these screaming girls, the boy bands nowadays, whatever. But he showed you like the birth of it. And he showed how these women were discovering it in themselves. And that was just the very sequence. Simple essence of that. I was like, this is incredible. And like only a movie can do that.
But he also showed it to you from a con man's perspective. Like you were analyzing it the way a con man would. And I thought that was an interesting twist on it as well. Like there's no singular twist in anything that Baz does, I don't think. It's like, I'm going to show you this thing, which is really clever, but I'm going to show it to you this way.
Which is really, you're right. It's really gross and it's clever because all I did know about Elvis was that I didn't understand what happened to him. And I think we can say that same sentence for all of the biggest pop stars.
I didn't either.
They all get eaten alive by that business, by people like the Colonel.
They realize
this guy is going to make me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they just get taken advantage of.
I never knew he didn't leave the States. And that whole narrative about like security, I was like, oh my fucking God. Like, yeah, the world has not changed as much as we thought it had.
That. I remember as a child thinking it was weird to me. I didn't know anything about the world or how the world worked or Elvis Presley, but I remember just the little bit I learned about his whole Vegas stint, just being like, why? Why did he go to Vegas and never leave? It just seems so weird.
I didn't know that happened. I thought he was doing concerts everywhere. And then we got to that one show and it's this beautifully edited sequence where he's doing the show of his fucking lifetime, having just gone through like the whole thing where he got sent off to the army and the movies and that starting to flop. And then he went and just did what he wanted to do. And he does this show and he puts his whole fucking soul into it. Meanwhile, his fucking manager, and I use that in inverted commas, is sitting in the audience doing a deal and signing his life away for 5 years against his will.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it bounced back and forwards between the energy happening on stage, and I would only describe it as the sheer fucking evil and selfishness that's happening at that table. I was just like bounced back and forwards in like an unwilling volleyball match. It was really well done. I loved that.
I got to say, I loved it too. And I'll preface this by saying I felt bad for Elvis. I didn't, it's not that I didn't feel for him, but I'm so happy. That was the redeeming thing for me that I needed. Because it was hard to watch this white guy steal this music from these black, like he was showing you that on purpose. And there's even this one sequence where the Colonel, Tom Hanks, who's literally a carnival barker, he like runs carnivals. That's how he started making his money. He grew up in the carnival circuit and he brings Elvis into a carnival show. At the very beginning, when he hears Elvis's record being played by somebody in the carnival, he's like, oh yeah, that the recording label only records black artists. They use a different word that I'm not going to use on this podcast.
Yeah, no, that doesn't fly here. Don't do that.
And he's like, oh, but whatever. He's a black artist. Doesn't matter. And the guy listening to the record is like, no, he's white. And here comes the Baz Luhrmann, the close up, the glittery music. He's white.
Yeah,
and like a dream sequence begins.
The next thing is them all jumping in their cars and tearing off, and the guy next to me laughed out loud.
He's white. Yeah, like, oh, we're going to make a lot of money. So what was redeeming to me is that this white guy, I think Elvis loved the black culture and loved the music. He loved it and he thought he was celebrating it. I don't think that community felt that way at the time, but it didn't matter whether or not they did. What was interesting to me cinematically was that Baz Luhrmann chose to show us that, and these more powerful white people are going to take advantage of you. They took him and exploited him. So it was just this sequence and exploitation all the way up to the top. Everybody was taking advantage of someone. The most powerful, richest person was just eating the person below them. The Colonel was indebted to some of the most powerful mafia members who ran casinos in Las Vegas, and they were exploiting him to exploit Elvis, to exploit, well, so it never ended. It was really gross. So I thought in one way it was kind of a really good, anyone who knows anything about the history of the absolute fuck uppedness of the music industry and how people are paid and not paid, it's really disgusting. This was kind of a wonderful way to kind of track the beginnings of it when these record labels were starting to be bought out by larger record labels, and then the record labels and the managers took basically all of the earnings from the artists. It was, so anyway, it wasn't about that, but I thought that was really interesting as well.
That was like, this is like the best like expose of like the music industry I think I've seen since Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh yeah.
No, to be honest, there are in-jokes all the way through that movie. They really, and the whole thing is about them ripping off their music and putting marketing underneath it. And what does he do? The first thing he does is basically fucking invents merchandising.
Invents merchandising.
My first thought was like, oh shit, is this where George Lucas got the idea?
I mean, look, quite possibly, dude. You got to make it literally the snowman.
It was literally like the scene in Spaceballs where like Yogurt starts showing him the merchandise, and he's just pulling this shit out of the. And the one that got me was when they pulled out the "I hate Elvis" badge, and his mother's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Well, no, some people are gonna hate him, so we may as well profit off that because what good's free hate?"
Yeah,
I was like, "You're endorsing hate,
dirty motherfucker." Yeah, the snowman. He keeps calling himself. You make it snow. No, it was so true. And again, it made me think about Baz's fascination with the entertainer. Like a lot of his movies are about the showmanship of attracting people into this world of entertainment and distracting them and just fucking taking everything they have from them. Yeah. Or the illusion of being wealthy and taking people's wealth. And he seems to be very fascinated by it.
That dream of fame and fortune comes with consequences.
Always. As we touched on earlier, every one of his stories end in tragedy. None of these are
seriously. This is it. Literally shows how tragically and completely things can go off the rails when you take your hands off the wheel and let others control you.
I mean, it almost,
and that really resonated
like he's
this
trying
week.
To say, me too. Oh fuck, Jesus Christ. Dave and I are still upset. You know what? Fuck you, SCOTUS, you fucking piece of shit. You fuck you. God damn it. I'm still not done. God damn it. But yeah, it does go to show you that like it's not a fucking America. It's everybody. Everybody loves the rise, the story of the rise to the top. But you know what happens when you get to the top? Almost every single person has one direction to go. Because once you're up that high, that fall from grace is just unbelievable, which was, we'll get there in a little bit, but I do like how this movie ended. So what is shameless about everything we talked about, and it's so effective cinematically, is that he knew I can't talk about any of these things as a filmmaker and a storyteller if I don't give the people what they want. And the people are Dave and I and everybody else in the theater. The music performance sequences in this movie are a 10. They're unbelievable. His shows, they're incredible, dude.
It's funny.
Which one was your favorite?
We made a joke earlier when we were recording the Black Phone episode about the actress in one particular scene there, and they're like, "Oh, have you got another one left in you?" I'm pretty sure after like 2 takes, this guy had to go home because he was given everything and
everything.
Yeah, it was. I think my favorite one was. I mean, it's kind of hard. I'm caught in 2 minds because not caught in a trap, caught in 2 minds. Because there was the one in the first show in the casino, or the first show in the hotel.
Yeah, it's so good.
But I also liked the way they set up. Well, I mean, it happened, but like the way the concert where there was a rally about segregation
at the stadium
going on, and he heard it. And then he just that little finger wiggle, and it's just like, yo, shit. That was the hero moment. That was the hero moment. So yeah, that one was probably my favorite.
Me too. I think they all knew it was just, it's so raucous. The sound design he brings in, like, there's a shredding guitar that is clearly from his past, from that blues player of the past. So I feel like an asshole. Like, that's a famous blues musician. I can't remember his name. I'll look it up while you're talking next. But the way the sound design came there, this editing going back and forth between a segregationist fucking rally that is happening like a couple miles away, the segregated rope at the concert that is in, in his show, and then just his inner conflict. So you have, this is filmmaking, folks. This is how it works. This is how we just make up scenes. It seems it's not fun when you talk about it in a writer's room, but it works when you put it all together. You have external conflict that we're going to show. We're going to show black people on one side, white people on the other, people of color on one side, white people on the other. We're going to show you two different scenes going on at once. And we're also going to have a character who is being emotionally torn in two and pulled at all angles. And now we have an enormous amount of conflict that is coming to a head, and all of us are going to be waiting to see what our protagonist chooses to do to take the story to the next place.
And I was on the edge of my recliner seat.
Me too, dude. I mean, we even knew it was coming. You know, we saw it.
Like, it's history. Historically it's history, but the way they built this, it's like, even with the ending, it's like, the whole thing drew you in completely. It's like, if his insanity is repeating the same action and expecting a different result, this movie made me a little insane, because I was rooting for him to win. I was rooting for him to go on and become the megastar he was heading to be, like he was, but like keep going and to get his international tour and all these things that I knew didn't happen, but they made me want him to have them.
Yes.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. If you're rooting for your protagonist at that level, even though you know the truth and you know what's coming, like that's genius. That is genius.
That's it, right? That is the mark of when you're telling these stories. If you can get people to think they can, maybe we can change history.
I've forgotten what actually happened while watching your film. This is
not a Tarantino movie. In a Tarantino movie, the Colonel would have been blasted away. I thought it was, in most of these sequences, he doesn't do it in a repetitive way. It's fresh every time. He does it a little bit differently each time. But I couldn't get over how effective the design was around. He would usually start the musical sequences in almost, for Baz Luhrmann, almost a real time. Elvis would start singing and playing music, and the music would kick in, and you knew what song it was, and we're going. And by the end of the songs, it would dissolve into this. You often couldn't even hear him singing the words anymore. Sometimes it would go into slow motion or get really fast. And it just helped me as somebody who, I don't know, it wasn't for me, but how do you take somebody away from just a performance and mythologize them? Like in every way possible. He took it to this level with filmmaking so that by the end of it, you were feeling almost what it felt like to remember that performance. Because if you were there, just like anything else, you could tell the story of you being there is going to be even more powerful than watching him do that in real time. It's like just the storytelling. He has become such an epic folktale in America and the rest of the world that with every performance, Baz upped the ante on the way he would display that. And I just couldn't get over it. Every time it was new.
Yeah, I also love things that you wouldn't have seen, like after the curtain came down on that hotel performance and he sat there for a second, the first thing he did was got up and thanked everybody. Like he thanked the band.
Yeah.
And all of everyone who helped him get there. It was such a gracious moment. And I was like, that's the mark of a true performer. Like that's someone who's gracious to everyone that helped them and that sort of thing. That's a fucking megastar. And it just like, by this point, I'm already on board with this guy. Like I'm wanting this to go not the way it went, and I'm like actively rooting for it not to go the way it went. And then the fucking Dr. Nick character turns up, and you see Dr. Nick, and it's like this one struck me a little bit because of like the whole Michael Jackson thing where they were like literally just injecting him. I had no idea they did the same thing to Elvis, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, stop doing this. Like, the show is good, but the show is not worth killing yourself over.
Yeah. The only thing that matters is that man gets on that stage.
Yeah. And
tonight or whatever the line.
The only thing that matters is I keep my unlimited line of credit, is what he was actually saying.
Yeah, fucking asshole. Yeah. And then, of course, I'm glad they didn't touch on it all, but you just did. And like, Michael Jackson married his daughter, and the whole tie-in culturally with these two gigantic superstars who died for probably a similar reason from a wide gaze. The drugs weren't the same, the scenario wasn't the exact same, but two people who were just worked to death and probably probably didn't get to have as much agency over their own destiny as they would have preferred. More than anything else, again, I was blown away by how young I just didn't know he was only 42. And I didn't realize that so much of his prime was lost to the fluff, the TV specials, the Christmas specials, sorry to say it, but shitty movies. I've seen a decent amount of those now, and
they
even
acknowledged that in the film a little bit. Like they're like, yeah, the movies went to shit because they just stopped spending money on them.
Yeah, he said he was better than Brando, but you didn't want to see him. And yeah, I think Baz wanted you to think like he's saying that, but we all know that.
Yeah, well, that was
ultimately
that was like the Colonel's narrative of you people did this, not me.
Yeah, I never did anything.
That came all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was you people that killed him.
Yeah,
I just slapped him with an $8 million lawsuit. Yeah.
Inside of all of this too, because we've already praised him just as in general, like the perform. When you think of Elvis, you think of the man on the stage, but I really dug his performances and his scenes with his family and Lisa Marie too.
Yeah. Oh my God, Priscilla's thread was fucking tragic. Her story thread, because she was the woman who was like,
"Oh yeah, excuse me, Priscilla, my bad." Jesus.
Yeah, it's like do your thing, like. Do what you want to do. Do the thing that makes you happy. I don't care about any of the money. Just do what makes you happy. And he did, and she was so happy for him. And yeah, then it all went to hell.
I mean, I do think whether or not we like it, sometimes the villains aren't, just because their motivations are bad doesn't mean they can't see the truth. And at the end of that Vegas sequence, when all those women were kissing him, and he said, "I knew that his love for her will never compare to his love for you." And he's talking to the audience, and that's got to be true. So all right, so again, we're sitting here in our writer's room and we're talking about what comes next, and we say, all right, their breakup scene. That was so refreshing to me that they gave it the weight it deserved, that it wasn't an anecdote from the Colonel's telling,
and it wasn't dramatic.
We got to stop
either.
It was a scene. I mean, I thought it was. I got pretty emotional.
But I mean,
in it,
I know. I mean, it was dramatic.
It wasn't like screaming and yelling,
but it wasn't hyper dramatic. It wasn't like a big
get the fuck out. It wasn't a Scorsese. It wasn't a Scorsese casino goodbye.
It was a stop. It was literally a stop. Yeah, they ground everything to a halt, put those two on a staircase, and went just do it. And
you could tell
it was fucking gut wrenching.
It was gut wrenching, dude. You're right, dude. I don't even know if there was any music happening. It was so quiet and still. And Graceland, you're sitting on the steps, and I, again, God, we think about, Baz Luhrmann thought about these things. We're literally seeing a woman walk out of a door, out of his life, and he's sitting on a stairway that only goes up. And I felt like as soon as he was like wrapping his arms around her, and you saw the jewelry, and you saw the way they composed all these shots. Everything has intention. You saw all this stuff that was on him, all the outfit. It's the middle of the day and he's dressed like Elvis. He's dressed in his like performance garb with all his fucking jewelry on. But when she walked out of there, your heart broke because you knew that like he had begun to lose himself. He had already, with the drugs and everything, it had gotten really bad. But as soon as she left, he had totally lost control over his life. There was no chance he was going to come back from that.
Yeah, he's like,
and you're right. The fact that he didn't resent her for it in that scene, we'll never know if that's what actually happened. I don't think anybody's going to tell us that.
But the way this scene played on film was amazing.
It was incredibly effective. It would have been way too easy for him to scream at her. You never believed in me. Huh? Well, it would have been super cheesy and cheap to just have these two people scream at each other. I also, again, thematically, I don't know if they literally said this, but I loved that every woman in his life, in his performance life, screamed at him, right? Women scream at Elvis. I love that Priscilla never raised her voice at him ever.
No.
It was never about this crazy, dramatic, passionate, they're fighting behind the scenes. It seemed like she was a very calming presence in his life.
I love that one scene that they showed where they're just going to bed. Like he's brushed his teeth and they're going to bed. It reminds me of like the one thing I really enjoyed like years and years ago about Superman Returns, where they had Lex Luthor walk out into the hallway brushing his teeth. And it's like, it's something just you don't expect from someone at this level. Yeah. It just brought him down to like a human element. It's like, this is his life. And
we all take shits. We all brush our teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was I like that scene. That was a really nice scene.
the extension of that for me was the very last scene of them together when they're sitting in this limousine.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And it was so revealing, not revealing, but it was so telling that the intimacy was still there. It was so calm. And again, it was just quiet. It was just the two of them. And she's not begging him. It's not this crazy dramatic. She's just asking him, please go to this rehab center. Like, this is your last chance. Like, the stake, she's not yelling. And then she leaves and he gets on a plane, and you realize outside of that limousine were hundreds of screaming fans.
Yeah.
They were waiting to see him off on this airplane. And I thought that is that fucker's life. Like, Baz Luhrmann never missed a chance. You just have to imagine that sometimes when you're writing these things and designing, you're like, are we too on the nose here? Like, that's how you fucking tell visual mediums. Like, every chance you get, you contrast it with what's happening emotionally versus what's happening in reality.
There is not a single thing that's on the nose in this movie. This movie is brilliant.
Yeah,
and especially
felt that way,
like,
dude.
oh my God,
like
see it. Like, I don't see it in IMAX. You don't need to see it in IMAX. See it in Dolby Cinema if you can. But even I imagine even in a normal theater with like the 5.1 or whatever they've got nowadays. But yeah, the fucking Dolby Cinema was amazingly mixed.
I'm so
it's
jealous,
definitely
man.
worth it. Also, for just for both of us, because
just for both of us.
Has there been a single buzz in this episode?
I don't think you buzzed me for saying I don't think Tom was the best casting, but
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't stop thinking of Christoph Waltz. I was like, God, I wish this was Christoph Waltz.
Ooh, yeah,
I don't know why,
right.
but I think I would have forgotten about him a little bit easier. I don't want to leave, and I don't want to move on too far without praising, because she is, Baz and her have been together since the beginning. They're married. Catherine Martin is the production designer and costume designer, and she's been with him from the very first movie. That woman, together, they have created the aesthetic of the Luhrmann thing. And it is singular. It is why they have this reputation of the Altera thing, and they've never let me down, ever. It's always unique and spectacular, and I thought she really outdid herself this time. It never felt like it didn't actually exist, which is hard to say for a fantastical presentation. Like, that's kind of what they do. And yet I kind of felt like every place they took us, that's probably what it actually looked like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it never felt like it was just for the sake of their style. It felt like it was always grounded in, no, that's probably what the international stage looked like. That's probably what the Beale Street, the Handy House, the Handy Club, what was the name of that club in Memphis that B.B. King and them played at?
I can't remember.
Unbelievable. But I felt like that was like, it was kind of, the dingy and the darker and the grittier places still had this beauty to it. And she does it every single time. I'm just such a huge fan.
I mean, the cinematography paired up with it, but the energy coming out of those places as well. It wasn't just the big concerts, like the energy of some of the clubs on that street were amazing. It was
really and truly, man.
I mean, I can't say it enough. Go and see this film. This is not what you think it is. This is something else, and it's so worth seeing. It's
a Baz Luhrmann and Catherine Martin film, dude. Right? They always turn these things on their head.
And it's something you really want to see on the big screen. So, if you're good with that, go and see it on the big screen, for fuck's sake.
Please don't watch this on a teeny tiny screen.
Do not watch it on your phone. Don't go to those stupid fucking websites where you get free movies. That's not legal. Just want to say you're stealing from artists. Go and watch this at the movies. And
you don't have to be a fan of Elvis. We'll just say that one more time.
Yeah, because I wasn't.
Love Elvis or whatever.
I was not a fan of Elvis. I probably still won't listen to his music, but this story is so fucking good. And this film really is so fucking compelling. Good. Yeah.
I'm so glad you felt that way, man. I wasn't sure if you were going to agree, but he is drenched. Elvis Presley is absolutely drenched and soaked in sweat and pheromones by the end of every one of his performances. And you kind of feel like that by the end of this movie, which is what I want to end on. The Colonel's narrative dissolves. And I could see some people having some issues with it, that we basically see him telling this story from his hospital bed on his deathbed the entire movie. And then at the very end, his narrative kind of goes away when he basically says, So that's what people think I did to him. I still don't think I did that. And although Elvis had this tragic end, I did get to see him perform one last time, and he gave it his all, as he always does. And it just very, very shamelessly goes into that final presentation of Unchained Melody that anyone who's ever heard him sing it and seen the YouTube video and that concert of him at the piano. And they basically just recreated very much how the Bohemian Rhapsody recreated that concert. And it does a really fun thing where the actor playing Elvis is playing him, and then it just goes right into the footage, and it's almost seamless of actual Elvis. So actual Elvis ends this movie.
It was like, he's so good, I couldn't tell if they did that or not.
They did that, and it fucking worked. And it was just like, I mean, your jaw is just on the ground. You might be crying. It is just unbelievable. A showman up to the very end. So it's just going to take you on a fucking wild ride. I really, really recommend it. All right, we did it.
We did it.
Baz Luhrmann. God damn it, I love him so much. Anyone who wants to hear us praise Baz Luhrmann some more, we had a wonderful episode on his Romeo and Juliet at some point over the pandemic. If you want to go back and check that thing out.
Yes, we did.
The films of 96, I believe.
I think it was.
Or 98, or whenever the fuck it was. Yeah, that was a fun episode too.
I can't remember when that came out.
All right, Dave.
I remember seeing it like twice.
I'm pretty sure it was 96 because I think that came out before Titanic. Anyway, what have you been watching? Anything else that we didn't touch on in our last episode with the black phone?
There seems to be a lot of Charmed. I'm still fucking watching that. But also, I finally got an Apple Plus membership, and one of the first things we fired up. I'm hanging on Severance. I'm going to that next. But one of the first things we fired up was Brigadoon. Schmigadoon.
Oh, dude!
And we watched it, and it was just fucking hilarious and cheesy and fun. And
is that Charlie Day and Rob McElhenney? Is that not their show?
Schmigadoon? No, this is the one where they're trapped in the town, and they can't leave until they find true love.
Dude, I haven't even heard of or seen this one yet.
Yeah, it's entirely a musical. Like the town bursts into musicals, and there's two people in the town who are like, "What the fuck is going on?"
So it's Brigadoon.
Kind of. But it's got like Alan Cumming in it, Kristen Chenoweth's in it, someone you may recognize who won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress last year is in it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, she's there. Okay. And who else is like Dove Cameron's in it? Everyone's in it. It's really really good. A little bit, I don't know, a little bit serious on the relationship aspect of it between the two protagonists, but when it goes into the musical, it's absolutely ridiculous and fun. Also, I've started watching the new season of Umbrella Academy.
Oh, cool, man! Yeah, I saw that come on my Netflix the other day. I bet Dave is watching this.
Well, I was curious for several reasons. Because like they left it with the introduction of the Sparrow Academy, which are the other, like the kids he adopted instead of them because they fucked with the timeline by this point. And also they now have Elliot Page. And I was like, what are they going to do with this character? And they actually went to the point of bringing in a transgender writer who wrote a very well-known book on transitioning, and got them to work with the writers. And the way they write the transition for the Vanya character into Victor is just fucking beautiful and amazing. It's great.
Oh, wow.
And
they do the whole transition.
And also funny. Like it happens in one episode, and it's so refreshingly funny because it's beautifully written is what I'm saying.
Good, man. That's cool.
So, and also the series itself is good fun because like I
enjoyed the first season.
Yeah, they experience something they haven't experienced before. They get their ass kicked in the first episode. So
nice.
It's a lot of fun.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. Tune into that quick before Netflix panic cancels it.
Oh no.
Because
they might?
they're doing that to everything. Like
Yeah, they are really shutting down a bunch of stuff right now.
Well, yeah, they're starting to lose subscribers, so they just laid off like 300 people. So, quick, watch all the Netflix stuff you want to keep.
Funny how
everybody
that
go and do that
when you raise your prices too much and people stop subscribing to you.
Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
It's. I mean, if I wasn't getting it free through my phone deal, it'd be the same price as my HBO Max.
Which is yeah. You can't. I mean, eventually. Come on, folks. We're heading back to a bundle situation, just like old cable. Like, don't make us do that. Make it affordable.
Well, the one thing I think I've said this before with like Apple TV. If you have an Apple TV or an Apple like that sort of thing, if you go down a couple of levels, you can actually buy individual channels for like $9.99 a month, and you can just cancel it and then rent it again when something's on you want to watch. So Apple is actually leaning into the churn, where you can, if something's on a channel you want to watch, you rent that channel for a month, and then you could rent something else for a month. And that's how we had AMC Plus for a while, and then we didn't need it anymore, so we canceled that. We got something else.
That's cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no. If you go down a couple of levels, there's all these TV channels. Amazon's doing it as well now. But you can actually rent individual. You can rent individual TV channels.
Thank you for telling me that. I had no idea. That's a really good idea.
I'm not sponsored by anyone. We can fix that if anyone wants to contact us.
That is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I am still watching the Formula One, so I'm sure I'm going to be watching some other things too. And there's a few movies coming out that I'm excited to see. Yeah, that's what's happening here.
Cool.
Good talk. Elvis was fucking great. So glad you loved it.
Fucking great.
Awesome. All right, film fans, we doubled up with our recording this week, so enjoy your fourth, where we celebrate the history of America, which you should be very ashamed of the history right now, because fuck SCOTUS, fuck them, god damn it, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm still not over it. But we're gonna keep talking about movies. Until the next time, enjoy yourself, keep loving movies, and we'll see you soon.